Welcome to the Friday edition of Juan's World, and you can see I'm sitting on my couch, which means there's not going to be any cooking today. I had intentions, but I also had made this gigantic fish pie on Monday, and the leftover fish from it I'd made into a bouillabaisse and then into a pasta dish, and so here we are, knocking on the end of the week, and I'm still working my way through the fish, the salmon, the jumbo shrimp, and whatnot. So I don't have anything to add. But I'm hoping that over the weekend I can pull out the buffalo roast, which I got at the Australian supermarket, and see what I can do with that. Or I will be back at the Australian supermarket on Sunday, because I always go on Sundays, because the traffic is very light. And I can get on my bicycle at 6 o'clock in the morning and get on down to the Australian supermarket, which is open 24/7. I can get all my delights and goodies like crunchy bars and smoked salmon and duck breasts and whatnot, and be back before 8 o'clock. And so who knows? But today I want to talk about a book that I've got under contract called Moments, and the subtitle is Times That Make Us Stop and Think. And it's not an academic book. It's a sort of reflection on things that have happened in my life that have made a difference. And the introductory chapter really gets into the details of what a moment is. And that's part of what I want to talk about. It's kind of my lead, but I'm not going to start there. I'll start with just a general overview of the book in general, and then I want to get into something that it kind of makes me laugh right now, which is that I got a letter from an email, not a snail mail, an email, from the acquisitions editor saying there was a problem with the manuscript. And that's kind of my ultimate point, but I'll get there eventually. Let's just start on with the book itself. Now, the book is something that's been percolating in my mind for a very long time, because there are certain times when something happens to me and I get pulled up short, and it really makes me think. And I'll give you probably the earliest example, the example that got me thinking about the book in the first place. In the summers when I was in the sixth form in England in a grammar school, I used to work for a light engineering company. I had started working for them over the Easter holidays back when I was in the lower sixth, because they needed some extra people to do some cleaning and painting, because their parent company, the corporation that ran the company, was sending over a bunch of executives, and they wanted to have the place all spruced up, but they didn't have any spare workers to do the work, and so they had sent a message around to all the grammar schools in the area to see if there's anybody who would like to work, and they were offering what was at the time a very good hourly wage, 7 shillings and sixpence an hour, which amounted to £15 a week, which it was at that time, we're talking about 1968, that would have been enough for maybe not a family with only one worker in it, but if husband and wife were both working, then £15 a week would have been a substantial component of their finances. You could probably rent a house, let's say, for about £5 a week, and I don't know, £2 a week would be enough for groceries and so forth. Like that, £15 a week would probably support a small family with perhaps a little extra. So, and it was very high for teenagers. You know, my friends who worked in the summer, or sometimes they worked on Saturdays to make a little bit of extra money, they would usually get something like 5 shillings an hour. So 7 and sixpence was really pretty, tempting, and so I took the job. And then in the summer, they asked me to work again because they had to do inventory, and they had this, I've forgotten what they call it now, circular inventory or something like that. It was something that was supposed to, they were supposed to do bit by bit by bit, every week, so that they would get around all of the stock room, which contained, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 components for the engineering that they were doing. And so they reckoned that 6 months they would get around everything, and then another 6 months they would get around it again. So in a year they would have done the inventory twice, and that involved like taking this box which had a component marked with a number on it, and inside was a card, and the card had the contents of the box on it, so that it was marked out in a table form. So let's say you had a shipment of 200 of these particular parts, some grommet, and so you put that 200 in, and there's this blue card, and you put the date, and you put 200 plus, right? And so that's your starting number. Well, then various people, the engineers, different managers and so forth, would come in and ask for a part, and so the person in the stockroom would go to the box, would take, let's say, 1 or maybe 2 parts out, would write -1 or -2, and calculate the new contents of the box. So if it started off with 200 and you took out 2, you now had 198 in the box, and so the card would say 198. Well, inventory required that you count the number of parts in the box and make sure that it matched up with the number on the card, which it almost never did, because all kinds of things happen. People would just wander into the stockroom for some reason or other, grab a part, take it away, and not fill out the card. Or they would have a shipment of 5 new parts, and they put them in and forget to write them down. So it was all a bit higgledy-piggledy, and the inventory was meant to correct that. So my job was to take box by box by box by box and count what was in the box and check it off against what was supposed to be in there based on people coming and going. And so I had a red pen, everyone else had a black pen, so like adding and subtracting was done in black pen, inventory was done in red pen. Do 1 box, fill out the form, the card, put it back, take out the next box. And I was 18, 17 years old, and that was just not very interesting work. I was studying Greek and Latin and classical history and all kinds of engaging things, writing essays and so forth. And here I was stuck in a windowless, fluorescent lit stockroom, counting things that I didn't even know what they were. Just like this odd shaped piece of metal, and there's 150 of them, and I've 1, 2, 3, 4. It got to me after a while, and I was doing this work one afternoon. It was about 3 o'clock, something like that. And I used to be a real clock watcher. We had a big clock in the stockroom, so you could tell what the time was at all times. And I was just watching it, waiting for 5 o'clock to come, because that was the time I went home. I worked basically from 8 to 5 with a 30-minute lunch, which is very much against the principles of English factory work, but very common for the United States. English factories gave you an hour for lunch. This factory gave you 30 minutes for lunch, and that's about all you could do is just like chomp down your lunch and get back to work. And they gave you 30 minutes overtime for the other part of the hour that normally would be spent at an English factory. And so you really, when you're doing inventory, you were stuck in that windowless hellhole for 8.5 hours out of the total 9 hours from 8 to 5. And so one day I was staring at the clock, it was around 3 o'clock, and I just said out loud to the ether, not to anyone in particular, I just said, "Oh, I wish it was 5 o'clock." And one of the older stock workers, he was in his 50s, I think, Alf, said to me, "Why are you wishing your life away?" And at the time I thought, daft git, what does he know? But that became the start of what I now call a moment. Because I've started reflecting on that statement over time, and I realized he's spot on. Right? Why am I, if I hate the job, and I didn't need the money, if I hate the job, why was I doing it? And if I was doing it, why wasn't I doing it to the best of my ability? Why wasn't I being totally engaged, involved? Even though it's a dumb job, I could have made it into all kinds of games. I could have done all kinds of things to make it interesting, but instead I had just given up. And I wouldn't say that right at that moment I converted, but eventually I did. I don't ever now do anything of that nature. Either I just don't do it because I don't have to do it, or if I do it, I do it to the best of my ability. I get completely involved. That was a moment in my life. So in the introduction to the book, I talk about what moment means in English, and it means a lot of things. It can mean a very short period of time, you got a moment? It'll only take a moment. It can be a turning point of a lever. We talk about the moments of a lever. If you're working in physics, you'll know, that a lever has a place where you apply force, and a place where you're trying to lift something, and a fulcrum, and that turning is called the moments of the lever. Or you can say that this is something of great moment. That means of something very important. and so on. I mean, like, moment is just full of meaning. And in the introduction, I say, I have had many moments of moment. And it's just meant to be a little whimsical thing to say. But for some reason, the editor of the book, and this is, the press is not a very important press. It turns out a lot of books, and they're quite pricey, and they're not really, like centrally important in academia, but they are important enough to publish, and they publish them either as hardbound books, and I've got one with this press that's hardbound, or they're ebooks where they go online and they're free, but that means that the author has to subsidize the production. Well, this one, Moments, is a standard hardbound book. And I don't know, I think it was that particular phrase that the copy editor got hold of and was kind of upset. So there are several kinds of editors at presses. There's the acquisitions editor, the person who takes the proposals for new books and decides yes or no, and helps them through that initial stage. And when the finished manuscript has been approved by the acquisitions editor, it goes to a copy editor. And the copy editor looks at it to make sure that it's in the right style, according to the press's style sheet, or a standard style sheet. In my case, I use the Chicago Manual of Style, which tells you how to use a comma and a colon and a bibliographic entry, and it's a very big book. And from the copy editor, it then goes on into production. But in this case, the copy editor read my manuscript and sent it back through the acquisitions editor and said, this needs to be edited. This is where I have to laugh. It has to be edited by a native English speaker. The proofreader, the proof editor, somehow got the impression, partly because I use the name Juan in personal correspondence, the book is under my English name, but for some reason or other, this proofing editor got the idea that I wasn't a native English speaker, and so she sent it back to the acquisitions editor, who sent me an email saying, you have 14 days to have a native English speaking editor edit the manuscript and send it back. And then there was this whole list of supposed corrections that I should make because these errors were prominent. Well, the first one was moments of moment. The proofing editor had said, I'm not sure, this may not be redundancy, but it looks like it. So, oh dear. And then there are things like, I had written, I was professor of anthropology at the State University of New York, blah, blah, blah. And she had said that I should have added a professor of anthropology. Well, professor of anthropology is my title. I mean, yes, there are several professors of anthropology in the SUNY system, and I was one of them, but it was my title. So it's perfectly correct to say I was professor of anthropology. She had said that when I had in the phrase, my father had hinted darkly that Japanese cuisine was horrible because it was full of raw fish and cold rice. And she had said, inappropriate use of an adverb. She doesn't know what darkly means, and doesn't know that in that context it's perfectly fine. So I could go down. I mean, I'm not going to give you all of them. She listed about 20 or more things that were supposed to be corrected. So I immediately wrote to the editor in chief and I said, yeah, like, this is stupid. This editor does not understand English. And so my question to her, and perhaps also to the universe in general, is how is it that somebody who really does not understand colloquial English gets to be a proofing editor at a publisher? It just strikes me dumbfounded. I mean, I think it's going to get solved because we had a set of interchanges. The editor-in-chief and I had a back and forth, and the last thing she sent to me was that this editor is apparently very new and doesn't know the press's style. So we'll see. But what the power that I have is that I don't care about this book. It's not an anthropological text of any sort. It's just my ruminations. It's just like something I wrote in my spare time. So it's not in any sense going to change my professional standing with the American Anthropological Association, because it's not an anthropological book in the first place. I'm not working as an anthropologist in a university anymore. I mean, I do a little bit of teaching now and again, and of course I publish a lot. But if it doesn't get published, I don't care. And I think that that's my ultimate message for the day, is that the greatest power that you can have over somebody else or some institution is not to care. If they publish it, fine. If they don't publish it, fine. I don't care. And I think they know that now. Certainly the editor-in-chief knows it. And we'll see. So anyway, that's my Friday rumination on my my publishing career. I'll be back on Tuesday, and I'll try to do some cooking. I won't promise, but I'll try to do it. Meanwhile, please like, please subscribe, please tell your friends, and have a great weekend.